All right, we are live. We are live. 1 week away, my dude. What's going on? It's Roberto Flack here. My man Coltrane was popping.
What's up, my dude? What's up, Roberto? Happy May Day. Happy hashtag May Day. I'm sorry, Maypop, not May Day. That was some other.
Man. Hashtag Maypog. I can't believe we were just talking before we got on the air, man. Well, actually, for everybody that's gonna be watching this, man, this is an impromptu, if you will, just kind of last. We got our show tomorrow, but we wanted to do a live, just hangout because there's so much to talk about. I mean, it's crazy to say, like we like we were talking before we went on the air, man. It's fight week. It's craziness. It's about to ensue. So obviously we're gonna talk about the fight itself, like we've been talking about on the show, but I guess this is really to put everything on the table, man. What we think is really going to go down May 2nd, literally a week, less than a week from today.
Right. And, I was thinking about this, Roberto, and the reason why this came to mind, because I don't know if everyone saw the Jennings and Klitschko card last night, and they were just talking about all the super fights that took place in the quote-unquote modern-day era since the 21st century kicked in. And I guess you can kind of say Bernard Hopkins, Trinidad, that was a big fight. I don't know if that was a super mega fight. Granted, it's really Bernard Hopkins was the marquee. Trinidad was the marquee. Bernard Hopkins was kind of still the unknown guy. Boxing fans knew who he was, but a lot of casuals didn't know who he was. So I think in order for you to use super, both fighters have to resonate with casual fans. And then they brought up Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson on the telecast last night, talking about that being the last super fight that we've seen. But when you really think about it, it's easy. Hindsight is always 20/20.
Yeah.
But I think most people felt as though Mike Tyson was kind of done at that point. It was something that Lennox Lewis wanted to do, far as, kind of, putting an exclamation mark on his career. That was the one name that he didn't have under his resume. And this fight here, both fighters, although most people feel as though, the fight should have happened 5 or whatever, how many years ago, but you and I both agree that both fighters still got, one great fight left in them. They don't look over. This isn't Sugar Ray Leonard fighting Terry Norris.
Yeah.
Or this isn't Sugar Ray Leonard fighting Tommy Hearns in 1989 at light heavyweight or whatever year it was when they fought the rematch. These are two fighters that's, near the end, but still at the pinnacle of their careers. Yeah. Tip-top shape, both guys. So this is different. This is a little different from 17 years, or how many years ago that Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson fight was. That was more of two names fighting. This is a little bit more than just two names.
Oh, for sure, man. I mean, this is, I think, like one of the constants we've been talking about on the show really is really just a lot is dependent on the current form of both guys, because I think when you look at both of them, we can nitpick certain things that they maybe don't do as well anymore, or maybe they don't do at all. But at the same time, when you look at it, like they're still at elite levels where when you match them up against other guys, 9 times out of 10, you would still favor, Manny or Floyd. So I think while we look at it, that, yeah, the fight is happening later than we wanted, the fight to happen, I don't think it's going to cause for it to be a stale fight. Like, I guess some of us thought it might have been the longer this fight were to play out, because I think there's just things that play into this fight when you talk about both guys that, when you look at the physical side of things and even the mental side of things, you have to look also like just the fact that of what's riding for both of these guys, man. You got to look at the motivation going in, and really at the very end of the day, man, like when all is said and done, what's going to be said about both of these guys, or whoever comes the victor of the fight, So there's things that obviously you could say, it should have happened earlier, but I don't think it's going to take that much of the luster out of the fight, man. Because look, I think it's going to be proven this week when we start to see just the like the amp of the fight just increasing to like another level. And for the people that are like, we don't want to see the fight, just like every other fight, they all come back. They all want to be a part of it, which it was really an event, man. I mean, it's the biggest boxing match ever as far as money's concerned, but this is an event, man. It's a global event,
right?
So both Floyd and Manny know this, man, and I think it plays a part in the fight too.
I think our homie Rada Da is trying to get in. I told him to click join.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on, but so yeah, the event aspect of it, that's great. You and I talked about it. We're psyched up, we're pumped. It's hard not to get swept up.
Yeah.
Us being non-casuals, you can't help the fact to become kind of a groupie a little bit of the whole situation. It's hard not, and anybody that says they're not, they're lying.
Yeah.
Just keeping it all the way 100. It's hard not to get swept up into the emotions of this particular fight. I mean, this is our generation. Hagler, Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Hearns, and Arthur in Manila, Rumble in the Jungle, Max Schmeling versus Joe Louis, all that stuff. Jerry Cooney versus Larry Holmes, all those mega fights that even some of the fight we saw when we were little children, but
right.
As adults and having a clear understanding. I mean, this is the first quote unquote mega fight of the modern day era, so it's hard not to get swept up in the emotions. Now, like every big game, every big fight, come Saturday night, once that bell rings, it becomes just a fight. Yeah. And that's when the X's and O's come into play. I mean, it's funny how that goes, right? Like even at the Super Bowl, right? Once that coin gets flipped, it becomes a regular game at that point,
Absolutely, man. And that's the beauty of. I mean, you could compare other sports, man. Like, but boxing is just there's no sport like it in the world where it's just like particularly for this fight where everything just stands still, and that's what I was saying. Like with both of them, man. Like I think they both know that, So I think RD's trying to call in.
Okay.
Got him on.
You got him in?
Think so.
Bear with us, folks. We're
Yeah, this is our first live cast.
We don't have the little music playing.
I don't know if he's on here, man.
He didn't get on?
Yeah.
Because I tried to invite him in, but I couldn't. I don't have anything to bring him in.
I'm just trying to send him another invite. But yeah, man, I mean I just to get back with to what we were saying, it's just I think a lot of with this fight, yeah, it's really new territory, man, to the younger fans, because like at least with us, we're old enough to have experienced De La Hoya, Trinidad,
right.
It's a fight that I mean I don't know if I would call it a super fight, but it's kind of a deal where I almost think like. Oh, I think that's him trying to call it again. When you think about like Holyfield Tyson too, man, the first fight, that was another fight. I remember when that was being touted. I mean, that was I don't know if I would call it the super fight per se, but I would think like in this era. I mean, obviously everything's been defined by the pay-per-view era, but I just think with this fight, man, just the whole lead up to it, and you could kind of see just the casual fans and even just regular sports fans through like just all mediums, man. Like there's something mentioned in each one of the telecasts, whether basketball here or there. this week is just going to be nuts. But obviously the hope you have is that the hype, or the fight lives up to the hype, because the last time we kind of got shell shocked was at least in my opinion, was the De La Hoya Mayweather fight. As far as the hype, and then the fight not being a terrible fight, but obviously the hype was bigger than what played out in the ring. But again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but I don't think this fight, for some reason, I don't think it's going to fall into that predicament.
I think did your volume go out? Let me see. I think I hit the.
I think I hear.
I hear Rada, but I don't see him. Thought I heard him.
Hold on. Yeah, pardon the technical difficulties, people.
With us.
I'm gonna try to re-invite him.
Okay.
See if he just
because I don't think I can. Only you can invite him. I think.
Yeah.
Because you got it. You filming it live. I mean, recording it.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna sing it to him one more time. All right, I just sent him an invite again. See if he pops in. So what are you? So you're saying y'all are you going to sleep spot to check the fight out?
Yeah. I'm gonna head over to sleep. He gonna have a little barbecue and just kind of make it a early start type of event. Some adult beverages will be flowing. And we're gonna hang out, and he has a little theater at the crib, and we're gonna be dialed in, man. This is the fight you really want to study. You don't want to have some drunk dude and some casual in your ear.
That's kind of the thing, man. With a lot of the people that, at least in the media circle of people that are going to be watching this fight with me, man, I think maybe there's only two that I would say are casual, like my two brothers. But other than that, like everybody that's watching, and my wife, but my wife's kind of watching the fight in the hopes that like Floyd gets knocked out.
Okay.
Right. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that are watching it, man, it's kind of like my same deal. It's they just want to see the fight, and they got offered to go to parties here and there, and it's just I know people that are going to parties and stuff, but I've met even a lot of casuals that are like, man, I just want to watch the fight, and that's kind of the interesting part of the intrigue to the fight, where the casuals in usual cases you'll see like, oh well, like back in the day where Tyson's gonna kill this guy or such. This is kind of a deal where you do have people favoring Floyd, but there are people that are like, man, I really don't know, and that's the best you could hope for going into a fight like this. But
listen, I'm glad you brought that up, because last night with all when they interviewed all those guys last night, for those who didn't see it, they interviewed Ricky Hatton, Juan Manuel Marquez, George Foreman, Bernard Hopkins, Shane Mosley, De La Hoya, and Lennox Lewis. Now, three out of the five guys, or was it three, right? Marquez, Shane. Yeah, 3 out of the 6 guys, I should say. Okay, there it goes. There it goes. 3 out of the 6 guys all have they both fought both guys, Floyd and Pacquiao. Now, the interesting thing about it was the other guys, it almost seemed as though like they are kind of on the fence who to pick, but the politically, no, when I say politically correct, I don't mean literally politically correct. I'm just going by on paper convention.
Yeah.
I'll say conventional wisdom. Better choice of words. Conventional wisdom says to pick Floyd Mayweather. You know, it's because you're like, well, Pacquiao does this, but Floyd never lost, so I'm going to pick Floyd Mayweather, basically. Because I don't know, because especially mainly with Ricky Hatton, because I kind of saw him like teetering both sides, and then he just says, well, you know what? Mayweather always found a way to win in the end. So that's what I find intriguing and interesting, that for the first time in a long time that you have this fight. Now, Pacquiao's been knocked out. He's lost. Yet and still, people still think he has the style to give Mayweather trouble, but they're still picking Mayweather to win, you know, the fight based on prior knowledge and, you know, what they know of Mayweather. You know, his forte is to figure guys out later in fights.
Yeah, that you hit it right on the head. Like, I think a lot of it's conventional wisdom. It's you know, you don't. It's kind of like gambling, you know. you
right. It's a good parallel, right?
You don't want to bet on against something that's always, you know, been your breadwinner, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, I think for, like, you know, when you think of like Bernard, who for years has been, I don't want to say extra vocal, but he's been somebody that has leaned heavily towards Floyd, and I can mention like a lot of people too. But like, I mean, you said it, like, there's at least in the last couple of months, and I mentioned this on the video I did, like, predicting the fight, like in the last 2-3 months, man, since at least the actual inception of the fight being made, I think, I don't know if it was a sense of reality set in that the fight was actually being made, and then the motors started kicking in, like, all right, well, damn, now that the fight's here, what's really gonna happen?
Right, no doubt.
The more I see it, man, I'm seeing a lot of people that are swaying, or I should say that are picking Floyd because it's a safe pick, but have a little reserve in their mind, like, damn, man, like, it, like, kind of reality has set in, and this fight is actually gonna happen. So it's almost like some people don't want to stick their necks out just because they kind of they've always stuck with Floyd, and now this is a fight that many see as, you know, Floyd's biggest challenge. You know, I mean, you know, depending on how you think the fight's going to go down, but you know, it's another intriguing thing about the fight as far as how people are really looking at it, as to like all these years. You know, you have one section of fans saying one thing, another, and now it's like
even the Mexican fans. Wait for Canelo Alvarez, the diehard Mexican fans out there, they were like, if Canelo wins, great, but not ready. Floyd is too good, and you know the reality is Floyd's going to win this fight. With this situation, it's universal. It's not just one demographic of people. It's not like all, you know, anybody who's Filipino is like, I'm rooting for Pacquiao, and that's that. You have well-respected people. Now, the vast majority is picking Floyd. Let's just be clear about that.
Yeah.
But there's a crew out there, several of them, Buddy McGirt being one, I can name a few others, that thinks that if Floyd, and we'll get into the fight in a minute here. We got a lot to talk about, but just to kind of paint the picture on how even people think this playing field is, Buddy McGirt, and this is out there on record too, I think it was on Fight Hype or one of the websites, and he talked about Floyd basically going into periods where there's laws where he doesn't throw punches. And he said, you know, against a guy like Pacquiao, you know, that's like an appetite for destruction, you know. So you got all these different variables and different opinions out there floating around, and it's just much, you know. It's just like the seesaw. It goes up, goes up, it comes even. That's the beauty of this whole thing, you know. Like you said, it isn't just one-sided, and it isn't just one way. So
yeah, and that's, I mean, I think that's, again, like, it adds to the event, man. I mean, this is really, I mean, we can go all day as far as you know, picking apart each guy, but I mean, I think this is like a perfect example of, You know, both guys are still at that level, man, where anything can happen. And it's I think that's why it's kind of just it's setting in. And I think sometimes with Pacquiao, man, I mean, I think he's had setbacks in his career, but I think when you go back down through the history of fighters that have had setbacks, man, it's not always been the end of the road, you know, so to speak. I mean, the thing with Pacquiao that is a big, you know, I don't want to say if it's an Achilles heel, but it's obviously a cause for concern is the fact, you know, he did get knocked out very severe against Juan Manuel Marquez. So I think had that not happened, I think it might have been for some others like a much closer fight, but or as far as how people looked at it. But I've seen enough boxing in my time, man, that like I don't think you can rely heavily on that.
Right.
It's just like you always get taken back to the, you know, the term styles make fights, you know, and there's certain things that you maybe would see happen to Pacquiao in a fight with A that won't happen with B. So I think that's probably as far as like the biggest thing with Pacquiao with a lot of the fans that are like kind of looking at how this can play out, where that's an Achilles heel for him in a sense. But being he's fought Bradley, Rios, and Algieri since then, you know, those three guys aren't three guys you would consider huge power punchers per se, but then, you know, you have to think like, is Floyd Mayweather a big power puncher in relation to some of the guys that he's you know, Pacquiao's fought? So again, there's a lot in this fight, man, that I think kind of gets, I don't want to say ignored, but people they try to bring up one thing a little too much without looking at like, well, you know, it's not,
yeah,
that, it's not that black and white, you know.
The panel was interesting last night because it seemed like Lennox Lewis, he was headstrong on Mayweather was winning no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, pretty much that's what I gathered out of it. George Foreman,
he was
he's going more with the controversial route.
Yeah.
He think Pacquiao's going to win 6 rounds and 1 round is going to be somewhat of a swing round and he'll win a fight like that. Bernard Hopkins never gave his pick, did he?
No. He said Floyd in a controversial decision.
Okay, but he thinks Pacquiao's going to win. But
that's kind of like kind of.
But see, that's going back to the I don't want to be wrong, Mayweather. But if you listen to Bernard's, he kind of was picking Pac. The way I gathered,
the things he was saying as far as it's. I mean, I'll get into it later, but
right.
Things that it's like I'm like hey, very interesting.
Yeah.
No, but yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's quite obvious he thinks Pacquiao is going to win the fight, but the whole conventional wisdom, safe bet type of thing, like you said, if it was a gambling thing, I'm gonna go with Floyd Mayweather.
Right.
But all the things that he was alluding to, it sounded like he was picking Pacquiao. Shane Mosley was picking Mayweather clearly. You know, he just think he's going to figure him out. Hatton's another guy, like I talked about earlier, that kind of think Pacquiao has the ingredients to give Mayweather some problems.
Yeah.
De La Hoya, I'm going to kind of leave him out of it. His opinion's a little jaded. Obvious reasons, you know, there's a lot behind that. You know, although he did say one thing interesting about Floyd having problems with a jab, and Pacquiao just here's Ride or Die right here. I don't know where.
Yeah, he was having trouble getting on.
All right, let's see. All right, is he there? He's there, but then he left again.
Yeah, he must be having some trouble getting on because he's trying to contact me, but set up a different session.
Right, no doubt, yeah.
Well, what do you So, all right. Well, I'll ask you this: what do you see? All right, I mean, one of the major things that's being, I mean, it's been talked about. I don't want to say it's not being talked about, but the corners. in this fight. Who do you give the advantage to?
As far as the trainers go?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. 7th, 8th round is going. There's trouble going on for each fighter. Whose corner do you think is the more efficient one when things get a little hairy?
It's funny, and I don't want to sound diplomatic here, but let me just go on the record and just say I think Freddie Roach is a better trainer than Floyd Mayweather Sr. Just period. I think he has a more proven track record dealing with other fighters other than just one fighter. Whatever your opinion may be of Freddie Roach, it's fine if he doesn't teach defense, if he's whatever it may be. He's won championships with different fighters, something Floyd Sr. has not. And Floyd claimed to fame as his son. I mean, that's a great claim to fame.
Right.
And Floyd figures things out on his own. We saw Floyd have problems. We didn't have Senior give him any instructions. Now, the flip side of that is we really haven't seen Roach give Pacquiao any instructions either. So it's a great question, but it's really a tough one to answer. And again, I don't want to say any other question I think I can give a direct, straight answer to, but I guess for the sake of this, for the question and, to have good conversation, I might have to go with I might go with Senior on this one, only because the tandem together with Floyd and whatever he's seen and whatever his dad may see, that I think they can make an adjustment where if Pacquiao got to make an adjustment, then it's probably going to be he's probably already lost the fight pretty much. I mean, I don't want to get into predictions and what I think need to happen in a fight, but just to answer your question, I'll go with Senior and Floyd.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking that too, because I was always thinking Freddie. Because the thing with Freddie and Man, we forget, I guess, how long they've actually been together as far as trainer and fighter, but at the same time too, you can't ignore the father-son relationship. The way I look at it though, with Floyd, man, I kind of think Floyd in a way is almost I know a lot of people have said this, but I think for the better part of the last 3 to 4 years, maybe even 5, man, I think he's been training himself. You kind of see it, just he knows what he's doing as far as his prep for his fight, man. And I think that's what makes him special, is the fact that the guy, doesn't need that extra somebody to tell him yo, you got to get up and go. He finds that, and it's crazy for somebody who's that wealthy and to find that motivation. And that's the thing with him, man. You got to give him that type of respect, and that's why I did when I'm mentioning the corners too. It's kind of a deal where you just see patterns in certain fighters, man. And I think Floyd has just gotten to a point where it's almost certain people know their bodies. They know, kind of with all sports, repetition is everything. It's consistency, and it plays out in his fights, and that's why sometimes when you think about the difference between Roger and Floyd Sr., it's you do see differences, but at the same time, man, I think you got to give the big credit to Floyd, man, because I think for the most part, man, I think he's been really the one, in my opinion, training himself for the better part of 3 or 4 years.
When he got hurt against Shane Mosley, I kind of already knew that he was training himself. I never, guys like him, even for a Bernard Hopkins, to just bring a name up, these kind of guys, they process and download information like computers, and like a smartphone. So it's almost like white noise they're hearing when they're in trouble or if they got to figure something out. I think these guys are more there as aides than anything, maybe as a third or fourth and fifth eye. Maybe I would not even third, fourth, ninth, and 10th, because these guys are like Cyclops. They got eyes all around their heads, Floyd's and the Bernard kind of guys. And when he got hurt against Shane Mosley, they were all yelling and screaming, and I just remember him. Somebody tried to pull a towel in his face. And he's like, "Get that shit out of here." You know, he was like dialed in, and then he turned it up after that, and really beat the shit out of Shane after that. But this was all him. Roger didn't give him any instructions. He like figured something out and picked Shane apart after that. Yeah. But I didn't hear now an ounce of instructions given like, well, you need to like back him up and get in the pocket and do this, that, or in the third. He just zeroed in on Shane, and that was pretty much a wrap after that. It was all made, like you said, it was all on his dime,
Yeah.
Whereas Pacquiao, we saw him have problems in fights, and Roach isn't really giving him, quote unquote adjustment instructions. Now, going into the fight and carrying out a game plan, it's kind of if you think about it, it's kind of twofold. Where Roach, he'll put a great game in the game, just like Saturday might be the greatest game plan of his life if he's able to pull this off. But I think it's more so he's more of a preparation coach and not a game day coach, which is a difference, We had one for 15 years. His name was Andy Reid. He was the coach for the Eagles. Great preparer. But if it came to throwing the playbook in the trash and let me improvise, we were going to lose the game. So that's how I kind of view Freddie Roach. But it's interesting because both of these guys are savvy veterans. And I think this fight is going to be won and lost between the two fighters in the ring. No disrespect to either trainer, but it all comes down to blueprints and what was instilled prior to the fight. Because once we're in the fight, it's pretty much on the guys, the two participants.
Nice, yeah.
So we'll see,
Yeah, it's
good question though.
It's kind of getting away from the actual fight itself, but did you see the whole fiasco with the weigh-ins now? That they went from $10 tickets to obviously just like how the tickets were sold prior, then they hit the second market.
Right.
And now I've seen these weigh-in tickets, mind you, weigh-ins for like $650 a piece.
And guess what? People are going to buy them. Because a lot of those people that's out there, they won't be going to the fight. So this is for the people.
I mean, like for the people who went there for the closed circuit, and to think about like how some of these people are finding out literally like days ago their final plans. Because I mean, mind you, we just found out this week that the tickets went on sale, and there's people who bought hotel rooms and flights and what like 2 months ago, man. So I mean, I can only imagine, especially like I'm sure there's people flying into Vegas as early as like tomorrow to just be a part of the entire week. But yeah, I mean, again, it's like bringing back to what we were talking about as far as like how big this fight is, man. I mean, I think it's just the fact that people want to be somehow involved. And even in the case where it's like, some people are just like making a hustle out of this fight in some fashion, be it the ticket brokers or, scalper. I mean, I don't know how they're going to deal with, I don't anybody scalping.
It's funny that you said that. It's funny you said that about closed circuit, because somebody was telling me that, like here, I don't know in MIL if they doing the same thing down there, but like here in Philly, they're bringing like closed circuit back, like back in the day. Like people were like capitalizing on like getting these screens, these 20 foot, however big a movie screen is, and like showing the event. They're charging like $100. They're giving out dinner, and they're bringing that back. So
I even seen some. I've seen some independent theaters down here.
Okay,
you're ordering the fight, and they rent out the spot, and they're gonna project it on a big screen, and then charge so much ahead. But I mean, it's funny how like it creates like these little side businesses for like at least it being temporary, but it's only in boxing that can this happen. Like you don't see this like with the Super Bowl or any of these other sports. And obviously I think it's because of the fact that it's boxing's the only sport where you have to pay to see like
that's because it's a pay-per-view. Right.
But it creates like revenue streams, and I mean the thing with the weigh-ins, at least, I mean, I guess in a positive note, I mean, it's all going to charity. So I mean, that's a good thing, because it's funny. Like my wife's like, you know, I mean, she's like, I tell her what's going on with the sport, which I'm sure you do as well. But like,
right, no doubt, yeah.
But you know, like one of her things was, she's like, you know, how it's crazy that these people are making this much money, and it's like insane, you know. And it's like I had to tell her, yeah, well, at least they're giving this to charity, you know. Like it's like something, because it's just like, if you think about the money that's being made for this fight, man, it's just like, it's stupid. It's stupid for one fight.
It may happen again.
Right.
That's the crazy part. We got to do this all over again.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'll be honest, man. Like, I'm on the fence as to like if this fight will ever, if there was. I mean, we have to obviously see what happens in the fight itself, because I think two scenarios would, I think, obviously demand for a rematch. Number one, if it was like an early knockout on the part of Pacquiao, like if he knocks Floyd out early, I think there would be a call for a rematch. Then if it's
no doubt,
close fight, and you know, maybe whoever wins, I think there would be maybe some concession. But I will say though, I don't think it would be the next fight though, because look how long it took to make this one, and even as we were finding out. I mean, remember, we were doing the shows and we were telling people like, yeah, the fight's on, and then like a week passes and then like we hear something else, and then the changes went back. But I think if it were to happen again though, you got to think too. I mean, does HBO want to do business with Showtime again? And again, obviously it depends who wins, because that would play a major part in the rematch. But let's say whoever wins, you know, are you going to want to go through that whole hoopla again to, you know, obviously make big money? Because Aram, I think, was on record saying that he would be against doing a rematch as long as Floyd was with Showtime or something along those lines.
I was already say, would be one of the major problems. If let's just say Pacquiao wins the fight, right? You and I both know they are going to take Floyd through like fire hoops.
Oh,
you already know, right? So any chances of a rematch happening, it will be.
I think it would be harder to make, to be honest.
And people probably think me and you are crazy saying this, but we have lived this entire nightmare out. That's become a dream now.
Yeah.
We lived it out. So we know all the different things that's behind closed doors with networks, Al Heyman, Bob Arum, Showtime HBO, you know, all these different scenarios. Pacquiao now being the ace out of the draw because he won, and got all that planned in. Now you go from Floyd getting 60-40 to them demanding 60-40. You know Floyd's not going to want that. He's going to want 50-50. Yeah. So you got that aspect of it. So that's why I'm thankful we'll get this fight. I mean, there's been a lot of great fights.
I'm happy you're getting it, man. This era's super fight.
Hagler and Leonard never fought again, you know.
So, De La Hoya never fought again.
De La Hoya never fought Trinidad again. So it won't be the first time this has happened, you know.
No. I mean, and that's kind of the thing where it's like I'm happy the fight's happening, and then like I understand people saying, you know, this could have been like their third fight, you know, if it were like in the 80s where, you know,
right, no doubt,
whatever. But I just think for all they went through to make, and again, like if you saw the HBO special they did, and I'm not to say like the Showtimes was bad, but I liked HBO's because they weren't unbiased towards like being that, you know, Pacquiao's obviously the HBO guy, but I like how they went into not like crazy detail, but kind of like a chronological order of how things kind of broke down. And like, you know, we forget, man, like, I mean, it has been 5 years, but like we forget like all the turmoil that went through this fight trying to be made. And it's like even for the boxing, the people that are in the industry, like a lot of them were surprised that it happened, you know, because there were the insiders that were, oh yeah, it's gonna happen because it's, you know, such and such. But I mean, we're talking about guys like Dan Rafael, Kevin Iole, Jim Lampley, a bunch of other boxing writers that were telling us like, yo, don't get too excited. This ain't gonna happen. And we've been hearing this for what, like the better part of 5 years. So I think it kind of like brought us back, like, wow, okay, we're bitching and complaining about these guys, but we really have to soak in the fact that this fight is actually finally happening.
It may not happen again. It may be a long time before you get a fight of this magnitude.
Absolutely, because and I think one of the beauties about this fight that isn't being talked about is the fact that I think this is kind of a turning point in boxing. There's certain fights that I don't want to say, because I would hope that this fight would define the era. I mean, that's the best case scenario, but I think for this, it's kind of like a closing of the chapter where we've experienced, I want to say from 2005 to now, or maybe a year before that, like, to me, that was like a pocket in time. Like, Manny and Floyd were those guys on parallel parts of the sport, and it just kind of became a 10-year mission to finally get to fighting one another. Though we couldn't have told you 10 years ago that they were to fuck, but it's kind of a deal now, like where we see all these new fighters coming about, the Terrence Crawfords, I don't want to. I mean, Danny Garcia is going to be there, though. We have.
Right, no, I understand what you're saying. Right.
There's all these other guys coming about, as the years go by, and I think it's kind of like this fight is like the closing of this chapter, and now it's time for these guys to kind of go on, and that's why when people say, and people have been saying it about this fight too, like this is going to be the last big boxing match. It's not going to thrive, but I think. And we've all seen it, man. Sports not gonna die out, obviously, but I think now it's kind of a door opening to the new generation, and the hope is that the guys or the people that are watching Mayweather Pacquiao, will get ushered into watching these new batch of stars, especially if a good amount of them are gonna be on the NBC or the CBS dates and what have you. So it's almost like a passing of the torch to the new generation. In my opinion, that this fight is, because reality is Manny and Floyd got at very best 2 fights left. And, this is, for the boxing fans, man, this is like our gift, like we've been patient enough, and, we're getting the fight we asked for, man. So it's like I can't really complain, man. Like, I'm not the one that's been really complaining about like it being too late. I mean, I'm just happy it's finally happening.
Yeah. I mean, that's that. Me and you and so many others, and very eloquently put, in close, and a new one opening up. You got a lot of young up and coming good fighters out there. If I would have told you in 2005 that Floyd Mayweather would be the highest gross athlete in all of professional sports,
crazy.
I was crazy.
Yeah.
So you just never know.
You can see this with Pacquiao too, though. I mean, I think with Pacquiao too.
Him as well. Him too. Yeah.
It's like how we look at the only difference I would say with Pacquiao, because I was going to compare him to Golovkin in a way where he's a foreigner, but he has this huge attraction.
Right. No, that's actually a good. That's actually a good parallel.
The only difference though is at least with Pacquiao, like he was already getting pay-per-view dates. As far like the Barrera. Barrera was a pay-per-view date, right? That was.
I think so.
That was right. Okay, that was.
But I understand what you're saying though. Like far as
he had. I mean, I don't want to say he was selling millions of paper.
Yeah, right.
But, I mean, I guess to parallel them, like. Even though Pacquiao was getting pay-per-view dates, because remember, Eric Morales was getting pay-per-view dates,
right.
Barrera and that. But I think even then we didn't see how big Pacquiao could be, and obviously it wasn't until the Oscar De La Hoya fight where which ironically was the same thing for Floyd, where both De La Hoya's. I don't want to say indirectly, but he's directly responsible for both of these guys, superstars. It's kind of like left out of the loop sometimes, man. As far as
he is,
he's in the ring, but just him as a promoter,
he was the bridge. He was the bridge for Floyd, and he was the bridge for Pacquiao. And if you kind of look at it, they kind of built Pacquiao's career off of, hey, look what Floyd did to this guy, and look what Pacquiao did to this guy, type of thing. You know, I mean, which was smart marketing, you know, because it gets people talking, and it gets us to where we're at today. And I can't harp on this enough. I'm trying to think what was probably. Like I said, most people knew Lennox Lewis was going to beat the living daylights out of Tyson. That was just a namesake fight. Yeah. Bernard, well, that was a little different again because Bernard wasn't a superstar, so you only had one star. But what I mean, when you got two mega superstars going at it, and I know why they did it because Bernard was on the show, so they wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. But that was different from this because Trinidad and De La Hoya probably was the last one where you had two mega superstars. When Floyd fought Oscar was kind of in the midst of Golden Boy promotions. You know, a lot of people thought he would give him a good fight.
Yeah, 2 fights in 4 years before.
Right. When De La Hoya fought Pacquiao, I'm gonna be honest. I thought Pacquiao was just too little. De La Hoya was gonna beat him, you know. But Pacquiao wasn't a mega superstar yet.
Not at that point, no.
So that's why you got to kind of erase that fight. This fight here, you have two mega superstars. And I keep going back to this because that is kind of like the poster child of how he's like the poster child of how a lot of people feel about this particular fight. He was teetering on the line of picking Floyd, but he didn't want to pick him because conventional wisdom says not to. I mean, says to pick Floyd.
And I've talked to a lot of people like that, man. Like,
that's how a lot of people are.
A lot of people.
And it's like they'll say all these not positive, but all these pointers where Pacquiao will do this and do that. You know, Floyd hasn't done this. If Pacquiao does this,
yeah.
But, you know, Floyd, he always figure out a way to pull it out in the end. So I got to go with Floyd. Yeah. I don't think you should pick a fight based on that. I mean, me personally, I think you should pick who you think is going to win the fight. It's only one fight. That's it. It's not like you're like assassinating a fighter's character or diminishing him. You know, if he loses to Pacquiao, he loses to another great fighter. You know what I mean? His contemporary of his era. You know, same thing for Pacquiao. If he loses to Floyd, he loses to his contemporary. You know, his counterpart. So. But I think more so with the Floyd aspect of it, people are just teetering on that fence, and they don't want to. I almost feel like, the Cotto and Margarito fight, I felt like a lot of people did this as well. Like there was people out there, I just remember people thinking Margarito's style would give Cotto trouble, but it was like conventional wisdom type of thing. When Cotto's the better boxer, he'll outbox Margarito. Kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Talk to you about that fight too. I mean, we obviously, we can make concessions for whatever happened after, but
right.
Prior to that fight, okay, and I'm a big Cotto head. Right, I will not lie, and I was nervous going into that fight because I knew Cotto was better than Margarito. I mean, I think everybody knew that, but
right.
It comes down to styles make fights. Sometimes it's skills do pay the bills to an extent. It's dependent on the style. And we can sit here and talk for hours and tell you and talk about fights that didn't play out like a lot of people thought. Not I don't want to say upsets like per se, but as far as like how you see a fighter, putting his skill up against another guy and thinking like, well, because he did it to A, B, and C, that of course he's gonna do it to that guy. And I think what's happening with this fight is, like you mentioned, it's kind of a deal where people are talking about like things that Floyd hasn't done or Pacquiao is doing, but I think too, man, it comes down to the notion that it's tough to bet against a guy that you've never seen lose, let alone you haven't seen him like lose a controversial decision per se in like over 10 years, being the Castillo fight. If that's the only fight you could say, like, or me, in my opinion, that you could say he probably lost. other than that, though, it's tough, man. It's like you said, you could parlay it to other sports where, you could put all these ducks in a row, and it's like, yeah, but he's good, but not that good. The thing with this fight, I think, again, we got to come back to the fact that, they are both elite guys, but they're not at their prime levels anymore. And
right.
That I think that's going to play a part in the fight as far as what each guy can do and still can do or can't do as well anymore. But I don't know if you want to segue into how you see this fight playing out.
Let's get into it. Let's we set the table. Let's sit down and eat dinner now.
Word.
It's interesting. For years I always thought Mayweather would pick Pacquiao apart. I'm just being honest. When we first started doing Guard Your Girl boxing, very adamant about Floyd just he's a counter puncher. Artist, basically. He's a technician, far as like baiting people in and setting them up with shots. Whereas a guy like Marquez, he's a good counter puncher, but he'll give his body up, in order to set these shots up. Where Floyd does it so beautifully, where he could sit in the pocket and hit you off the slip, counter you off the slip. He could slip punches and counter you in that respect. He can lull you in and, pivot a certain way and have you go in a different direction and stop you in your tracks and counter you in that respect. I mean, just so many different ways that, he sets these punches up. You saw with Ricky Hatton, he trapped him. He baited him. He kept following Floyd around. And he finally got the timing down, and boom, just like that, Ricky Hatton was down for the count. One of the things that I've noticed in the last few years with Floyd is, and it started in the Cotto fight, was I saw him not getting out of the way of punches as like he used to. Now, granted, Cotto had a good game plan. Cotto game plan was to put a jab in Floyd's face and neutralize his speed. And set up his own counterattack, and he crowded Floyd. He did a good job because Cotto was physically stronger than Floyd. Since Floyd made the jump to 147 pounds, a lot of these guys he's been fighting were, they were smaller guys, like a Ricky Hatton, like a Victor Ortiz, Guerrero, but Cotto, grew into his welterweight frame really well. And he's a stout guy. He's a strong dude. Yeah. And he was able to bully Floyd. But in the end, Floyd, made the adjustments, started landing that looping right hand behind Cotto air, and that became like his money punch for the rest of that fight. And he found a way to win the fight. In the end, he was just a better fighter, than Cotto. This situation with Pacquiao, what makes this fight interesting, and I'm gonna go back to something Bernard Hopkins said, is we seen Floyd go on the ropes and buy time. He can call it, he's making his fight exciting. He can call it, he's setting traps. But when I see fighters, go on the ropes and buy time like the way Floyd does, that's a fighter that's trying to get his win. And I'm not saying that Floyd is out of shape because everybody knows he's in tip-top shape. But Father Tom has a unique sense of humor. And Father Tom has somewhat crept into Floyd's life. He can deny it. Other fans can deny it. But I'll stick to what I believe. And it's all in the eyes of the beholder. But my personal opinion is that he buys time when he's on the ropes, when he grabs fighters. And that's fine. That's smart. That's what makes him, the quote-unquote best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport, because he uses his IQ and all his wits to win a fight. But against a guy like Pacquiao, who's constantly flushing you, rushing you, almost equivalent to a defensive end, pass rushing a quarterback and trying to push him out of the pocket. Pacquiao, his come forward relentless attack. Now, granted, he doesn't do a great job of cutting the ring off, but he keeps his hands busy. That's the key. Where a guy like Alvarez just followed Floyd around, didn't cut the ring off, but he didn't let his hands go. Where Pacquiao is going to let his hands go, even if it means him walking in and counter right hands. Now, that also can mean that it may slow Pacquiao down, because everybody knows if you counter a fighter, they're going to slow down. But with Pacquiao, he's so relentless with his pressure, and he's awkward. And those laws, those moments when Floyd likes to take breaks and buy time for whatever reason, whatever he's doing, however you want to couch it while he's buying time. Guess what? Joe Calzaghe versus Bernard Hopkins. In case people don't know what I'm talking about, Joe Calzaghe didn't land a lot of punches on Bernard Hopkins, but he stayed busy, kept his hands moving when Bernard was in defensive mode. And in a magnitude, we're talking about rematches. When we're talking about judges and all that type of stuff, being persuaded, getting caught up in the moment. That's Manny Pacquiao in there. He's throwing punches. They must be landing. Those are the things that Floyd Mayweather has to be careful about. Now, the way that you can prevent that, like I mentioned, was Floyd has to command respect early from Manny Pacquiao. Like, even if, like, maybe, like, knocking him off his feet, dropping him one time. He doesn't have to knock him out. But even, like, an early flash, even if it's just a flash knockdown, he has to demand respect. Because Floyd doesn't have power, but he has respect. I mean, I'm not going to say he doesn't have power. He has respectful power, meaning as though when he hits you, it's very accurate and it's coming at a fast velocity and it stings and it slows you down. And that's what he has to do with Floyd. Every time Manny Pacquiao lunges and come in, rather if they're using an in-and-out style or just relentless pressure, he has to let his hands go. He can't throw one punch, two punches at a time. He has to throw two, three, four punches at a time to get Manny's attention, to slow his pace down, because this fight is all about tempo. And if that fight is for that Manny Pacquiao's tempo, then it's going to be an interesting night. Now, if it's for that Floyd tempo where Floyd is picking his shots and Pacquiao's like, wait, I'm going to go. Wait, I may go. I may not go. Then it's for that Floyd tempo. But long story short, it all comes down to tempo. And whoever demands their tempo, I think will probably be in control of the fight. It's all about tempo for me.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing with this fight happening now, again, and this is why I think it's still going to make for an interesting fight, because we have to take into account again that, you know, these are it's a 36-year-old Pacquiao and a 38-year-old Floyd Mayweather, but they're still at elite levels, where it will make for an interesting fight as far as what these guys can still bring to the table as their last, like, great performance, which I think both of them have, you know. And while conventional wisdom would tell you Pacquiao is the more beaten up fighter, so to speak, I don't think in this fight it's going to play much of as much of an Achilles heel as people think, because we got to remember what kind of fighter Floyd Mayweather is. You know, if this were a situation where Manny were going in against, like, Keith Thurman or somebody who's going to try to be very authoritative with their punches, I think there will be cause for concern with Manny. But not to say that Floyd doesn't hit hard, but I think we have to remember with Floyd is he's a safety-first fighter, and he's not going to put himself in a position, I don't believe, that is going to obviously get himself hurt, but is going to minimize the control he has in the fight. Because what people got to remember with Floyd is he doesn't care how good he looks to the casual fan.
Right.
He cares about being consistent and effective. So the thing I think he's going to have trouble in this fight, man, is that one thing I've seen, and you brought up the Cotto fight, I think with Floyd is, you know, if you cut the ring off on him and you don't give him the real estate, he could fight out of that, but you're making him work a lot more than I think he wants.
He doesn't like being uncomfortable in those.
Right. And I think what Cotto did, I mean, I have my opinions as far as what Cotto could have done, and, like, the strategy, but the jab was key, you know. But obviously, I don't think the jab is going to be a key in this fight for Pacquiao, because he's not somebody who
jabber.
he just flicks the jab and kind of just
out there, right?
His rhythm. But what Cotto did, I think probably better than most guys have done. Maybe I guess you could say Maidana kind of did it too. Was they were just very busy and weren't standing in front of Floyd like the entire time. The thing with Maidana, but Maidana was kind of like, at least especially in the first fight, just almost reckless for his own good. But what I saw in those fights, especially in the second fight, and you and I, I was sending you little clips and things like that, is Floyd in the later years, and you mentioned the Canelo fight too, and Canelo didn't present this because, like you said, he kind of followed him, and he followed,
right.
Canelo's work rate is really low as it stands, but I can't ignore what Maidana did for that first fight as far as how much he threw and how much he made Floyd work, and like you said, how uncomfortable he got, and even in many points in the fight, how ineffective Floyd was. And I think that's something that like people weren't picking up on as far as the shots he was missing, and some of that was kind of parlaying into the second fight. I mean, I think with the second fight, he kind of, he took advantage of Maidana kind of trying to play somewhat of the same game. And Floyd, just hit him with one shot and just kind of brought Maidana in, and, you would just clinch him. Didn't get warned, but I mean, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But the thing with Pacquiao that, again, I think there's a difference between footwork and foot speed. Pacquiao doesn't have, in my opinion, the footwork that like a Miguel Cotto has or a Gennady Golovkin has, as far as trapping your opponent, cutting the ring off, giving no real estate whatsoever, and making you tense up, the entire fight. But the difference in a way where Pacquiao kind of does that is he is elusive in a way where he's moving side to side, and while you're not seeing him cutting the ring off on you, it becomes a deal where you think he's coming at you one way, and before you know it, he's over here and you're getting hit with a punch. And
right.
That's again, it's a difference between, somebody who, because again, Pacquiao's not the biggest guy, so he's not so much of a guy that can kind of like cut that ring off and enforce his size on you and kind of just tee off on you when you get into the ropes or get in the corner. A lot of his game, I think, in this fight has to be in and out, side to side, darting, and trying to attempt to turn Floyd. Because I don't think he's going to fight him on the inside. And Floyd is, I think in the later years, we've seen how good of an inside fighter he is. But you touched on it. I think a lot of it is he has to fight that way. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like starting to see that the guy is very skilled. He's, he's got 3-4 different ways to beat you at a time. But I think, again, this is kind of like an ongoing theme I'm always talking about with these two guys is current form. And again, like I'll be the one to put it on the table first, man. I think Pacquiao is gonna win this fight, and I think he's gonna win. Basically, like, I mean, not to me be really vague about it, but just really out hustling Floyd for 12 rounds. And I think the strategy that they gotta have in this fight that I don't think a lot of people use when fighting Floyd is you can't think about rounds 7 and 8 and 9 hoping that you'll be there. You got to go in there, fight round by round by round by round by round. And
somebody touched upon that on the telecast last night.
Yeah,
one of the panel
and
members.
You have to do it. And I think the one thing about Pacquiao as well that separates him from a lot of these guys that Floyd has fought in the later years, man, is Pacquiao's a 12-round fighter. And when you look at just his overall energy and his stamina, I mean, it's on par with Floyd's. And Floyd's a guy too, the 12th round, man, like the guy's not breathing that heavy. Though in the first Maidana fight, he showed a little signs of that. But at the same time, we see, I mean, you see how hard the guy trains. We see how dedicated the guy is. But, I mean, there's obviously things that are going to play in the fight that we don't know how they're going to play out as far as how's Floyd going to take Pacquiao's power punches. Because I'm telling you this right now, Floyd will get hit with many shots. I don't know if it's a situation where he's going to be getting, like, if Pacquiao's going to be teeing off on him. I mean, I don't think that, but we're going to see how receptive Floyd is, because I think the one misconception with Pacquiao is that though he hasn't had a knockout since Cotto, I can give you 4 fighters that he dropped or hurt.
Right.
About that course. So, we can't – I know Floyd's not going in this fight thinking that Pacquiao can't hurt him. I mean, he'd be foolish to think that. But for Floyd as well, I think the same should apply for Manny. Is Floyd is not your quintessential one-punch knockout type of guy, at least, not above 135. But, again, we've seen the trend where, he's so consistent that it's kind of a situation where it's like you're constantly – he's hitting you with the same shots. So just like in most cases, if you hit your knee, and you keep getting hit on that knee, you're gonna want to back up no matter how hard, somebody's hitting your knee. It's kind of the same. It's the same kind of deal. Floyd's not the biggest puncher, but you're consistently getting hit with a lead right, or a left hook, or a lead right, and even some of the shots to the body throughout the course of 12 rounds, man, that does take a toll on you. But I mean, yeah, man. I think I really. I mean, I'm going against the grain, and
Right.
I know, like, I'm not the only one as far as, like, some people I've seen, picking the fight. But I think the fact that this fight's happening now, and just things I've seen with Floyd and really with Manny, I think the strategy Manny's gonna go into this fight with, as far as not being in front of Floyd, being more elusive than people think, and making Floyd work a little more. I just think Manny's gonna look like the busier guy. Maybe not totally dismantling Floyd in the sense of just teeing off on him, but I think it might be a situation where he just steals rounds and Floyd's not active enough, and then you're kind of looking at rounds 10 and 11. You're like, shit, what the hell's going on? But I mean, I don't know. I'm sticking my neck out there for this one, man. I'm not playing.
I mean, listen, if more people had the cojones that you're possessing tonight, then we would have more of a fair balance from the so-called professionals out there. But that's okay. That happens a lot with these fights. One of the things I did want to allude to was, Pacquiao, and I go back to the Bradley fight. Me and you and I talked about this off air. He did a poor job cutting the ring off.
Yeah. And
he got lifted off his feet in that fight. And the one thing that they have to be careful with is lunging in recklessly, like abandon, you know what I mean? Like reckless abandonment, just going in blindsided. I mean, just going into to a blind date. Because Floyd, the velocity, the speed, and the accuracy you saw with the Marquez punch, it can happen. Floyd bulked up for this fight for one reason and one reason only. He wants to knock Manny Pac. He didn't bulk up because he's fighting a smaller guy. So what would he need to be all extra diesel for? Yeah. And I know a lot of people, harp on Floyd bulking up. Manny is smaller than him. This is the first time he fought a small guy in a long time, and the last time he fought a small guy was Ricky Hatton. Let's just get one thing clear: Manny Pacquiao is not Ricky Hatton. Let's just get that clear right now. Let's also get something else clear: Marquez and Floyd Mayweather fights nothing alike. Nothing. There's nothing remotely close. The only thing that they do similar is they're counterpunchers. That's it. But there's different routes to their. There's different methods to their madness. So
yeah, absolutely.
Where Marquez, he got his nose broke in that fight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Marquez also gets scuffed up before he gets his shots off, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Floyd Mayweather, as you alluded to earlier, doesn't get scuffed up. Floyd Mayweather barely gets grazed. So for him to fight like Marquez, that means he would have to take some risk in giving up his and. A guy like Mayweather, he doesn't fight for fame. There's a reason why he's 40-something, whatever he is, 48-0, 47-0. Right. There's a reason. That's not by mistake because he fights with his mind and not his heart. He doesn't fight with his heart on his sleeve. And I know a lot of fans out there, just want it to be true and want it to play out like that, like a Marquez, just so they can show fans or what have you. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The fighter is going to stick to his game plan. And for him to do what a lot of you guys want him to do, far as like stepping into his punches, because see, to put all your might into a punch, you got to step in. Stepping in means you got to leave yourself on the island.
And you're committing, right? You're committing
yourself. You know what I mean? You step in, you leave, you become vulnerable at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
And Floyd doesn't do vulnerability, you know. So in my mind, and I think you agree with me, I think we can kind of eliminate that. Although Floyd is bulked up. Now, here's the problem about the bulk up, about him bulking up. I don't like seeing fighters this late in their career putting on muscles.
Nope, no. And
come out of muscle.
Experience, man, from experience.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, nothing good comes out of muscle, especially in the sport of boxing, because this is a sport that's predicated strictly on skills.
Skill, yeah, absolutely.
And this is important too.
Yeah, it's not, but also too, people got to remember, man. Like, you know, fighters get in shape. You know, there's fighters that look like, you know, they're lifting a lot of weights and everything like that. But like, you will meet a lot of trainers that will tell you, man, like they keep their fighters away from bulking up like that. And here's the thing too, when you talk about the history of Pacquiao when he fights these bigger guys, I mean, look, man, we can go down the line of these guys that were apparently bigger than Pacquiao that were going to be much. I mean, look, granted, Floyd brings a whole different dynamic with
a different dynamic, right?
But here again, here's the thing, though, and you touched on it. There's several cases, man, where fighters and some other athletes have bulked up, and it hasn't been necessarily the overall best thing. Now, there's guys that have adjusted things in their training, have gotten in better shape, so to speak. But as far as like bulking up, unless you're going to be a thorough power puncher, Floyd's style doesn't rely on.
Yeah, he's not Trinidad. You know, he's not. Floyd doesn't load up on punches like this. Somebody like Shea getting a little, you know, being muscular because he loads his shots up.
Yeah,
he's not a loader. You know, he's a pitcher and a catcher. So I mean, he's a pitcher, not a catcher. Pardon me, but
I know.
Back to my point about the whole him bulking up. He's not grabbing Pacquiao. Like, I don't see, people got this and I argue with a lot of the fellow GYGB members about this. When they keep talking about the size differential, it doesn't matter. Did you hear Shane last night? I was hoping people was paying attention. He said when I stood next to him, I said, there's no way. This guy, he's so little, but he was like, and I think Oscar said it's like you're trying to hit a fly that's not there. I mean, just trying to catch a fly that just keeps moving.
Right, and that's and again, like it brings me back to my point with the one of the things that's not being mentioned, man, is you know, Pacquiao kind of, you know, when you look at like certain guys he fights, man, and I want, maybe with the exception of Marquez and Bradley, but he's almost a guy that invites punches more than, like, I would say Floyd would.
Right.
When people say, "Oh, I'm fighting like that for," I don't believe that, but you see it in the Pacquiao fights where he's literally walking in front of Algieri,
shots.
Saying, guys, like, come on. But I could show you fights, the De La Hoya fight, the Cotto fight, the Margarito fight, in some cases where you see Pacquiao was hard as shit to hit on a consistent basis. So
and not so much the hitting part too, the physicality part. Like I talked about Floyd roughing up some of these littler guys, you know, being able to clinch them, locking their arms, grabbing them. Pacquiao's a hard guy to clinch. He's not the easy. First of all, he's little as hell. Yeah. And Floyd, the one thing Floyd has to be careful is trying to reach and grab him, and then Pacquiao comes from underneath. Some very awkward shot. Yeah, like we saw in the Madonna fight too. Now you felt like, I think people got this misconception that Floyd just going to be like, you know how Floyd likes to do that push you back into the ropes and then start welling. Like, I just think the Kenny Bayless thing is kind of going to be minute because Pacquiao doesn't hold.
Right. No.
Floyd, that's why you rarely see people clinch him. He's not a holder. Yeah. Like, if you see Pacquiao holding, something's wrong. You know what I mean? Then Floyd will win the fight. But the in and out style that he uses, I mean, granted, he gets hit, but the in and out style he uses, it makes it difficult to try to clinch him. Yeah. And I couldn't, before I get into my actual prediction, I could not bring up the whole weight thing and that potentially slowing Floyd down. And the one thing that I keep playing in my mind is Pacquiao, Floyd right hand just bouncing off Pacquiao head and him still coming forward. Because, see, that changes everything. You know, we talked about Canelo Alvarez getting hit and just kind of just, you know, being intimidated and, you know, pretty much mentally checked out of the fight. One thing we know about Pacquiao, and you actually brought this to my attention, although I knew it, you reminded me this, there's never been a fight where he's been thoroughly outboxed for 12 rounds. And if and you can call us on this challenge and Google YouTube his fights. He's been knocked out before.
The Morales fight, though, that first Morales fight that the fight he lost, like that wasn't a total domination.
No, it wasn't a total at all.
But he lost.
No doubt.
Look at what Morales went through in that fight. Look at what, and then look at what Marquez has had to go through in 4 fights to get his crowning win. You know what I mean?
Right. He had to go through some fire hoops.
Hell, man. Like
here's the thing for me. What it all comes down to, not to complicate things. And the fight, like you said, is each round is judged individually. You know, and most of the time Floyd starts off slow in his fights. You know, he kind of lets you play your hand, and then he then figures you out, and then he checkmates you. You know, in the later rounds. In this situation here, if he gets behind on the cards, it's going to be very difficult to get out of him, because if he's down on the cards, that means he's going to have to dominate Pacquiao from here on out. And dominate him mean putting himself in harm's way. Dominate him mean a more action-packed fight. Dominate him mean fighting at a high pace and a high tempo. And I think if we get into a high pace, high tempo, that's a Pacquiao fight. Slow pace, slow tempo, that's a Floyd Mayweather fight. You know, where Floyd's just picking him apart and Pacquiao's just waiting. If you make Pacquiao think and make him wait, then Floyd got a chance at beating him and picking him apart. But I just see, like you said, the foot race, Pacquiao running Floyd down. Or however the fight goes, his lateral movement or straightforward movement, Pacquiao angles, his hands just being let go. He only has to win 6 rounds. I know George Foreman said this, but I kind of thought this as well, and I have to text you this as well. 6 rounds is all he needs to win. That's it. If a judge was willing to give Marcos Maidana 7 rounds, you best to believe that there's a judge out there that will give Pacquiao 7 rounds. 2 judges, excuse me, not just 1.
Yeah.
So if it comes down to round by round, who got the better of the exchange and who was more busier, I think Pacquiao is going to win this fight. I think there even may be a 116-112 scorecard for the first time.
Wow.
And well, it'll be the first time Floyd lost, but I think it'll be like a larger margin than the Maidana situation. Only because I just think that Floyd is falling into the trap. And I never thought he would fall into this trap. You and I talked about this, of the size thing, the banana in the tailpipe. This is what been on since Pacquiao moved up. The whole size thing is like, I've heard enough about it. Not one of his fights had anything to do with size. Marquez is just as little as he is. It has nothing to do with size.
Yeah.
And Floyd his body mass tells no lies. So don't tell me that this is for the cameras. And no, he hired Alex Ariza for a reason. Yeah, his body looks like I want to take Manny head off his shoulder, but it doesn't work that way. And I'm shocked that, and granted, this call could be window dressed. I don't know. We don't know until the fight plays out. But if I'm a betting man, I'm saying that Floyd, unfortunately, fell into the trap, and it's going to be a hard hole to get himself out of. I'm picking Pacquiao by decision. And I've been said it on the radio show.
Alluding to it, yeah.
And it's no knock to Floyd. It's that where he's at in his stage of his career where he doesn't like to throw a lot of punches, where he has you can't have these moments.
No.
And I have yet to see him fight a fighter with the work rate of Pacquiao in this particular format where he takes rounds off.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can do that against Pacquiao and expect to win a razor-thin, a close decision. that's where I'm at with it, man. But the size thing, I can't believe he fell into the trap.
That's what I started seeing. I mean, again, it could be smoke and mirrors, but like you said,
with his body though, it's like
we're
so jacked up,
And and it's funny. Like you also look too as far. I mean, I kind of think this part of smoke and mirrors, as far as his father talking shit about Alex.
Oh yeah, I don't buy it. I don't care about that.
Buy that much, but yeah, I just think that he, like you said, man, like you can't. And look, Cotto's told us, De La Hoya, all these people that have been in the ring have all said it's like you can't take this guy's size for granted. You can't. And I think of anybody, Mosley should have been the guy, because I haven't seen. I mean, and mind you, Mosley's only been dropped twice in his career by Vernon Forrest. And
Vernon Forrest, who's a big, strong welterweight,
big puncher, and to credit Mosley, he took that fight, and in today's with weight, these fighters brought up like a lot of guys would have stayed far away from Vernon Forrest.
Oh, nobody would have touched him
anyway. But I never seen Mosley's face like that before.
Right,
and he said something after that fight, and he kind of he shoves it under the rug or whatever, because Mosley. He's kind of like I don't want to say he's egotistical, but there's times where he kind of doesn't give the devil his due sometimes, even though there's times he does. Like,
I know what you're saying, right?
And I remember he was in an interview and he was like, "Yo, man," like he said something along the lines where I've never felt power like that. He's like, he's not a strong guy as far as like just his physical strength, but it's like I've never felt power come like at me like that. And look, man, we could talk about the blister and everything on his foot, but Mosley wanted out of that fight way before that blister became an issue. And again, it might play a significant role in this fight where Floyd. I mean, I think we don't give credit for his beard. I mean, for a guy who's not been hit very much, I mean, he has been rocked by Mosley. He got rocked by Chop.
And that's the shape that he's in too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But again, like I don't think Pacquiao, though he hasn't had any knockouts. Freddie kind of says he alludes to this a bit. Like he's like, he doesn't have the power at welterweight, but I think he's kind of a deal, maybe more than Floyd, where these guys aren't going to try to stand in front of Floyd or Pacquiao if they don't need to, man. Because I mean, granted, he's a smaller guy, but I think speed a lot of times does equal power, and it's been kind of a constant with him throughout his career, as far as how he's gone up in weight, and like with Floyd, I think his it's funny that people are saying that Pacquiao needs a knockout, but like I'm almost on the tip. Like I think Floyd.
Nah, I disagree. Yeah,
I think Floyd to get to. I mean, he can win a decision. I'm not saying he can't.
Yeah, he can win a decision. If Pacquiao just following him around.
Yeah, I think him to get a knockout over Manny would. I think like that could be a situation like come rounds 8 or 9, he may need to do that.
Right.
And it's crazy to say now, but like. We've never seen Floyd like down in a fight going into like the 8th or 9th round. So, new things may have to come out of Floyd that we've never seen. Because when's the last time that we've seen him? I mean, we could talk about the Castillo fight, but I mean, that was like freaking like 10, 12 years ago. But at this stage, at the level of where Floyd is at professionally, on a level as far as being a celebrity and what have you, we've never seen Floyd in trouble, so it would be interesting to see another dynamic come out of Floyd that we either haven't seen in a while, which is again is why this fight is just
listen, that's what you're saying is what I've been thinking the whole time. He's going to have to fight in this fight.
Yeah,
meaning that. The pot shotting, which is great for those other guys, but in this particular fight, he's going to have to jump in the alley. I don't know how long he's going to have to stay in the alley for, but there's going to come a period because his Pacquiao just brings that out. And we talked about this. When you fight him, you're going to have to get into the sweat box. Like you're going to have to get into the alley with him. And I don't know when it's going to happen, may not never happen. Then what we're saying probably will be true. Pacquiao now, one thing about Floyd, I don't want to take this away. He has dog in him. We saw it in the Shane fight. We saw another side of him. He jumped right in the pocket and didn't move. And so if Pacquiao punches him in the face and catch him with a good shot, that might trigger
something. Yeah, which is really like at the end of the day,
win.
That's all we can hope for, man.
Yeah, that's the win-win. Now, so what I'm saying is, for the fans' sake, that's great. Now you got a toe-to-toe battle going on. But I just think that in this fight, they're not going to let Floyd win a pot. Not they. Pacquiao's not going to let it. He's not going to be able to just pot shot.
I don't think so.
I think that's what a lot of people think, that he's just going to systematically pick Pacquiao apart, and that's just going to be the fight. If that happened, I'll be shocked.
I'll be shocked. But again, it comes down to the fact that, this is what we've just been accustomed to seeing with Floyd. And then, and again,
that's what I'm saying.
To credit Floyd, again, like, it does make it odd.
Well, Floyd has a great way of people, when he talks, they listen. He's mastered that. So people sometimes don't think for themselves. They'll just say, well, Floyd said he'll systematically, him and Senior, like, oh, what's the point of fighting him? But yet they're doing all these different changes. So we know that they're taking them serious. That's all great and well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But in the end, he's going to have to, like, he's not beating him throwing 2 and 3 punches. No. And that's going to be that. Like, Pacquiao doesn't allow for you to get into your comfort zone, so to speak. Right. Like, you can't get into a comfort zone with him because he's relentless.
Yeah.
And he's awkward. He's relentless. And I feel bad for people. And if their camp is thinking that they're just going to bully Pacquiao, you just don't see it happening with him.
Yeah.
I would love for someone to show me an example where his size was a detriment to him.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of like what it comes down to too. Is just Pacquiao's been and look, and even to Floyd too, man. Like, Floyd has played the role of being the smaller guy in a lot of his fights. So it's kind of interesting.
All against Oscar,
right? And it's funny because if you look at the trend, I could tell you a lot of fights with a smaller guy won out.
Right.
As last year with Cotto. Granted, we can say everything about Martinez's knee, but I was telling people, man, you guys are looking at this totally wrong, man. Right. Like, size is not going to be an issue in this fight. I don't think it's going to be an issue in this fight because even though Floyd's 5'8", and Manny's like, it's funny. I don't know if you saw Floyd was saying like how Pacquiao puts the lips in.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, man, like, I've seen Floyd Mayweather in person, and like, I'm 5'6", right? And he's not that big. Okay?
Right, yeah. I'm 5'8". He was way littler than me. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I think with the whole reach advantage and things like that, and even Sugar Ray Leonard said that. Like, he was on the first take when they were talking to him about
the 72-inch reach. Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
He's like reach is not gonna do anything, and
I don't mean anything.
I know he didn't want to make mention, but it's like, look at
Paul Williams, where he's just gonna sit and jab him all night.
Right, exactly. And then even look at the fights he had with Roberto Duran. The first fight. Roberto Duran has like 67-inch reach. Yeah. Leonard has like a 74.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter, and especially with the fact that Pacquiao, and again, not to dwell too much on the Maidana fight, but the thing with that fight that I look back to more than any of the other ones is just how quick, or now say how quick, but how successful Maidana was to get cutting the corners with Floyd or cutting the distance. And this is a guy that was slower feet, nowhere near the angles that Manny can move in and out. Isn't on the tiptoes of his feet, moving in and out. And he was still able to kind of get Floyd uncomfortable and just very passive, And I just think when you look at who needs to turn it up, per se, like, some people are saying Pacquiao does because, he's got to beat the undefeated guy. But I'm really on the side that Floyd's got to step it up in this case. And almost, I would say, if it is remotely possible to, like, dig in the the dig in the bag of years past, but it's almost like we need to see like the pretty boy come out in this fight. And I mean a guy who's gonna let his hands go a bit, get out of the way.
A curtain call.
Yeah,
the curtain call.
That Floyd to me would make this fight crazy, and I think would be a difficult fight for Pacquiao in the sense of like if he's bringing that type of speed, but with the volume that like Floyd used to have back in the, at the lighter weight.
I just hope the weight. I just hope that all the weight he put on and all these muscles, I hope they don't come back to haunt him.
Right.
Losing things.
We've seen time and time again, man, where that could
LeBron James, not to switch sports, but
you're right.
His diet.
You're right. You're right. I mean, I could talk to you about a whole other thing about that situation.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's a good point. I mean, and you look at
Kobe did it too.
Yeah. I mean, Wade in a way did it too. He lost weight, but he put it back on. But like that, things like that, and mind you, when you speak about LeBron is he's not even 30 years old yet.
Right.
And you're talking about a 38-year-old who is pretty much, I don't want to say switching up his entire routine, but
not this late in the game. Now, I'm just not a fan of it.
To be doing extra different shit that is gonna parlay into you knocking a guy like this out, who prior to the Marquez knockout hadn't been knocked out in like how many years? And it
was the perfect punch too. The perfect punch, the perfect delivery.
Yeah, and the thing too, I mean, not to get too technical, but like, I mean, to credit Marquez, it was an accurate punch, but the shot had it like landed here. I don't think
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
like it's your equilibrium just shuts out.
It's the perfect shot, like I said.
But again, like you're mentioning, Floyd. I mean, I want to see him at the weigh-ins, because the thing, what I will say sometimes is we see these pictures. And then they look a little
way and they slim down, right?
I'm like, okay, he's still got to make 140, what have you. I'm on the tip that Manny is gonna come in light. I think
we talked about that. I think Floyd knows that too.
I think he's coming in 143, and if you look at him, man, like his best weight as far as when he fought like the Cottos and guys was like 144, 143, but the power and the speed were all there,
He has to be light because he needs to move.
Right, exactly. And I think partially why he was getting some of those cramps. I mean, he's had them, but you got to think like he might have been putting on a bit too much weight.
Right.
You're moving around like that, and it could be a cause. But I think he's got to come in light. But the weigh-ins are going to be very interesting. I want to see how big Floyd is. I mean, for his sake, I hope he just looks the same. I hope he was weighing 150.
I've been seeing a lot of Manny lately on commercials. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah. Well, I saw Manny now, and he looks
right.
I haven't seen him look. And again, it's not a bodybuilding contest or whatever, but I think you could tell with him how serious he's taking this fight. And not to say Floyd isn't either. I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
But as far as just he's
gonna be a freight train. It's safe to say, and Floyd knows this. The Mayweather camp knows this. It's gonna be
man.
Those first 3 rounds, man. All the talk and stuff is all gonna come out. Those first. That's why it's gonna be interesting. That first 3 rounds. I don't think it's gonna be a fill-out process.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you would hope it's like a Hagler Hearns type.
I think it's gonna be interesting. He's gonna come right out. I mean, that's kind of the blueprint.
I think Pacquiao's coming right out from the back, and just. I don't think he's gonna attack him or just throw an array of punches like right off the bat. But I think he has to do this. He has to be first. He has to set the pace early on, and like I said, win round by round, but not let Floyd kind of like you said dictate the pace and slow everything down, because that's what Floyd is like. He figures a way to just slow things down, and he see things coming like a mile away, man. And Pacquiao can't let him do that. I mean, in the case where he has the advantage is the fact that he is still a risk taker. He'll stick his neck out there to just kind of gauge, number one, where's your power at? Do I respect it? Which mind you, is gonna play an important factor after rounds 3, 4, and 5, where if he's not respecting Floyd's power or any of his punches, man, he's gonna start to not open up to get hit, but he's gonna try to create openings for Floyd, you know, or for himself, for Floyd to open up and try to engage. Because like you mentioned, when these middle rounds come about and he's down, something's bound to happen. You know, Floyd's got to get out of a hole that potentially he's never been in before. So,
it'll be interesting, man. You know, to see his legs. You know, we're gonna really find out if his legs are done or not in this fight. You know,
for sure, man, for sure. Because I think for in the beginning of the fight, I think he's gonna try to just be, you know, I don't think he's gonna try to engage with Pacquiao early. I think he's gonna try to evade as much as he can and try to counter early and make Pacquiao miss. But again, like I mean, I know it's cliche, and you know, this is something like some casuals may make mention of, but I mean, look, we can't ignore, man. Mike Tyson says this all the time. You have a game plan until you get punched in the mouth.
You get punched in the mouth. No, it's true, man.
And again, it's like with Pacquiao. Again, he doesn't have that type of thudding power like a Golovkin or somebody like that, but he has power that, again, like we've seen with like how people have said with Floyd, like even with Bradley, like Bradley, when he was getting hit with these shots, it wasn't like he was on the attack on Manny like the entire night, man. Like he picked and chose like when he would come and attack. But to his credit, Bradley's, I would say, even more of a risk taker than Floyd is, just by nature. I mean, and we've seen it in the Provodnikov fight. But I think with like again with Floyd too, man, I think he has to smack Pacquiao really early and get his.
I said that.
He's got to do it.
He got to command. He got to set some doubt in Pacquiao's mind.
Right. Early on.
And one thing about Pacquiao that I do notice is, like, if you're tagging him, he's a little bit reluctant to come in as aggressive as he is earlier in the fight. If you start catching him later in the fight, you saw that in the Marquez fight.
Yeah.
And you know, Marquez had to go through some. He had to walk through fire to get.
That's kind of the thing, man. It's like you know, Floyd. I guess some people would compare him. I would compare him more to like Whitaker than I would with Leonard as far as his approach to offense. But even like with Sweepy, man, like we talked about this with the Chavez fight. I mean, he opened up on Chavez. Like
he opened up. He got all 6-piece combos. You know what I'm saying? Like went to the body.
Unheard of.
But that's another thing. Floyd, see, to go to the body, and everybody's saying he's gonna go to Floyd Pacquiao's body, which is great. I'm all for that. But you know what body means? That's commitment.
I know what punch you're talking about.
But going to the body means you have to commit.
Yeah.
You got to commit, and commitment is dangerous. You know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely, and it's again, like for both guys, I think the beauty of this fight as well, man, is just the fact that like there's for both guys, they're gonna see things they've never seen before. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, both. I want to say with Floyd. I mean, look, he fought Judah when Zab still had very respectable speed, and we saw how that worked. You know, how that was working out for the first 4 rounds. But you know, we all seen well, I don't say the evolution, but the constant with Zab Judah, where he just kind of shells out of a fight. But I think with both guys, man, they are going to see things, whether at all in their career or at this stage of their career, that they haven't seen either in quite a long time or if at all ever. Especially with well, I mean, really both guys, to be honest, because I mean, Pacquiao's never seen a boxer like this, and Floyd's never seen an offensive machine like this. So it's, I mean, again, man, like it's, I mean, we could go for hours, man, but it's just, I think there's so much that we really have to, that is going to be played out in the first 3 rounds in that fight, and that I think is going to parlay into the rest of the fight.
Yeah, so that's where you have it. So, you know, we're both picking Pacquiao.
Yeah.
You know, it's no knock on either, you know, whoever you're picking. It's two great fighters going at it. I just hope that people out there that's watching the video and that's listening that enjoy the fight. You know, whatever your personal opinion is of either fighter, try to put that to the side. You know, it's been 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many years it's been since we first heard about this fight. Enjoy it, relish it, because you don't know when you're going to see another super fight again like this. And whoever loses, it's no shame to either guy because both had great careers.
Lost to another great fighter.
It's just lost to another. And some of you out there, you're too young to remember, but guys lost fights, you know, because you know why? Because they fought other great fighters a lot. Yep. So when you fight other great fighters, you're probably going to have some losses on your resume. You know, we brought up Leonard, and the Hagels and the Hearns. They all had losses because they all fought each other.
They all fought each other. Somebody had to lose.
They call them the Four Kings, you know.
Somebody had to lose, you know, and even like look at what Roberto Duran went through in the span of from 1980 to 1984 between beating Leonard, no mas, knocked out by Hearns.
Right.
He's regarded as the greatest lightweight that ever lived.
Because people respect, you know, him going out on the shield. You know, it's a little different now with, you know, hand-picked opponents and
business-minded
network versus this network. There's a lot of more business has seeped into the game, but again, I can't harp on enough. Cherish it and just enjoy the fight, you know. And we're going to be on tomorrow night on TalkShoe.com. Make sure
the last round table.
Last round table. We just get into with these predictions. You know, we'll be repeating a lot of this stuff. So,
well, tomorrow's gonna be crazy.
Tomorrow's gonna be crazy because tomorrow all the emotions that been bottled up because this fight brings the emotions out in people. You know,
yeah, it does, man.
You know, people. You know, I always been a person. I don't really have a dog in this race. You know, I'm just picking a fighter. Yeah, you know, like I opened the show. I told you I always thought Floyd was Pacquiao was tailor-made for Floyd, but this version of Floyd, and I hate to jade the fight by saying this version, but I just think the way that Floyd fights right now, he's now become tailor-made for Pacquiao, in my personal opinion, and the way fights are judged today.
Right.
So, that's my take on it.
Yeah, so tomorrow night with 9:30.
9:30, we back at it, man.
The final
final round table.
It's kind of crazy. It's like
it's still surreal, you know what I mean?
I've been doing the show since like I want to say when I was following you guys, it was 2008 because you guys did a Cotto Margarito video.
Yeah.
So mind you, this is like almost like I was talking about before, man. Like this is like a turning of the chapter because I think in a way, like, I don't want to get biblical or anything like that. It's not that deep, but it's kind of like a before and after.
No, I feel you.
Like generation with some of the younger guys where the younger fans were they experienced stuff from like up till now, and now this is like the closing chapter, or so we think. and now is gonna be, you know, and look. It may take another 10 years for another big super fight to be made. Now, granted, there are guys that I could, you know, we could tell you right now that we think will be superstars. But again, the great thing about boxing is that there's guys right now that some of you are watching that you may not even know in 10 years will be the #1 fighters in the world.
Like Canelo Alvarez, for example, right? Canelo Alvarez is almost kind of manufactured a little bit, where they told us he was in Boston. Doesn't work that way. The way superstars are developed, it comes out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like the Pacquiao and Mayweather thing wasn't really manufactured. It just kind of happened. You know,
it happened.
Nobody told us. It happened. You know, so you don't know. There's fighters right now that's fighting that may fill these two voids once they're gone that we're not even
talking
about. That's not even accounted for.
We got to remember in 2005. All right. Let's just if you go back just 10 years. Not to drag it out, but you go back 10 years. We could go through a list of guys that we thought were gonna still be relevant or maybe would have been huge guys.
Margarito. I thought Margarito, to be honest, I thought he was gonna be like the next Chavez.
Yeah, I mean,
we all know what happened with that.
Yeah, and then you got you can mention Paul Williams too. And obviously, unfortunate thing that happened to him,
which was the tragic, unfortunate.
Yeah, but it's just that's the thing with boxing, man. At the very end of the day, the one thing that's always been a constant is that the fighters are going to tell you, and the fans are going to tell you that they're going to dictate everything because, Floyd was brilliant in creating Money Mayweather, and with Pacquiao, he's just a guy that people fell in love with his style, and it's something that kind of just organically happened, and like I said, in 2005, if you were to tell me a featherweight Pacquiao was going to fight the junior welterweight Floyd Mayweather, I'd be like, you're crazy, right?
Right.
You never know, man. You really never know, and that's why after this fight, I just, with boxing, man, like we can't always run to the casuals and yank them and be like, yo, watch this fight, but
right.
But I think I think you could say this as well. I think the sport is in good hands as far as the fighters that are going to be there post Mayweather Pacquiao, and and the only thing I can say for the casuals is enjoy, like you said, enjoy this, relish in the moment of like this global event, because you better believe that this is going to be like,
and watch it with your children, like people that have like young children.
Yeah,
watch it.
Such as yourself, myself.
Right. Yeah. When we grew up, this is we watched the fights with our parents or our pop or whatever. That's how you got into the sport, and that's how the sport continue to grow its fan base.
Oh, right, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of it's kind of like with I can relate with baseball, like where it's like a handed down tradition,
right?
And
right.
Boxing in a way has kind of been like that with my uncle and my grandfather, and now me, and now to my son. So it's that's why when the sport will never die. Well, for one, as long as there's people to throw money around, the sport will never die.
No, the sport is actually, if you look at what's going on, the sport is actually, and it's all what is it gaining momentum off of? Two fighters, like we just talked about.
Right. Exactly. Right.
The whole Al Haymon movement, Floyd Mayweather. Like,
right.
Whether his stardom didn't rise. Not that Al Haymon wouldn't have been successful, because I think he would have, but everything was kind of built around Mayweather.
Yeah.
The whole and the same thing on the other side of the fence with Pacquiao. So because you got these two generational guys, just like in every sport, football, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, generational players, they held the NFL on their shoulders for the last 10, 12, 13 years, You look at LeBron James now in the NBA, he literally carries the NBA.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on. Boxing is the same way. It was De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad. They moved on. De La Hoya hanged around a little longer. Floyd Mayweather beat him. It's because there's going to be somebody that fights Pacquiao or Mayweather that takes the baton and then starts a new chapter. That's the way it's always been.
As long as they keep fighting, and that's
they all stay too long, because boxing is the one sport, and we'll wrap up. Boxing is the one sport where when they stop calling your name, it's not the same anymore. Where the NBA, you can go work for TNT and still become a mega superstar. You can become a studio analyst. Same thing with the NFL. Like one would argue that being a studio analyst or a commentator in these other sports is kind of better than being a coach or being a player, because although you don't make as much money, but you still always on TV.
Yeah.
You get paid a nice amount of money.
Yeah.
You get to travel. Mm-hmm. You can't really do that with boxing.
Well, you don't see a lot of right. You don't see a lot of guys that are. I mean, Bernard and Roy.
But you understand what I'm saying, like.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Bernard, look, he's 50 years old and
he started. You see, he's kind of getting into that next chapter of being a.
He's. And it's funny. I mean, I don't want to drag it on, but like, it's funny that he's been doing a lot of HBO gigs, and that's like Roy's spot.
Right. Exactly. you know, that's the one sport where you can't just segue into something else and it's kind of still the same. So the guys, now I don't know, these guys are making, but sometimes it's not just about the money, it's about the ego, you know, and if they think they can do it, and if they throw more money at these guys, they're going to continue to do it.
Yeah.
Now, Floyd still has another fight in September. So let's just say hypothetically he beats Pacquiao. I don't know who the hell he would fight at that point. Now, your guess is just as good as mine. You know, what happens then? Like, does he take a lollipop on the way out the door? Then it's like a jaded 50 and, you know, oh, he's not at 58 and 0 because that'll be 49. It's not over, folks. It's not over.
I'm telling you.
We'll talk about that after. Let's get past. All right, my dude. So I'll see you tomorrow night, man.
30 GYGB boxing podcast. I'll put the link on the bottom after this.
All right, my dude. I'll holler at you. All right.
All right. Peace.